Hello everyone, welcome to Res Snapper. My name's MJ and this is Snap or Pass, a series where we look at the brand new cards coming to Marvel Snap each week, or in weeks like this where we've got multiple cards. This week's Spotlight card is Victoria Hand. She's a 2/3 ongoing. Your cards that were created in your hand have +2 power. In this video we're going to talk about the Spotlight caches that she's in, mechanics, deck archetypes that she's going to work with and fit into, give you some deck ideas, and you can, other stuff, but you can use the chapters below to skip to the part that you want to watch. Let's kick things off with the Spotlight cache. This is the strongest Spotlight cache week in a while in my humble opinion. We have got Grandmaster, who is, did they recently drop to a Series 4? I'm sure they did. Anyway, they're a Series 4 now. Really nice variant as well. So it's like a double whammy. Both not only a good card, definitely enjoy it myself, but also great variant. And Kate Bishop, Hawkeye Kate Bishop. Oh my gosh. One of truly the best cards in the game. One of truly the best season pass cards that they've ever done. And this variant's pretty nice. I don't mind it too much. And she's a Series 5. So absolutely Jeff Tremaine. Tremendous. Lovely stuff. Right, let's talk about the mechanics of the card. So, I think primarily she's going to, of course, fit into the shield archetype. But you might be surprised to see some other archetypes here. Because you might look at her and think straight away, oh, just a shield card. But actually, I think there's maybe like a small opportunity for her in ongoing style decks. I think there's enough locations that create cards in your hand that kind of just might be alright, just as like a cheap ongoing card, especially if you've got just like a little splash of card generation in your hand, maybe from something like Hawkeye Kate Bishop, who herself can create an ongoing card, for example. So that could work, but actually properly will work in miracle dumps, so these kinds of decks where you like have a crazy hand or you duplicate your hand with Moon Girl, play loads of cards out of it. I think that's going to be interesting. And discard as well. Yes, is she going to be an interesting discard card? You think about cards like Helicarrier, potential opportunity there, and also Swarm. Swarm as a 0/5, pretty good. I mean, if you can somehow weave some buff into there like a Gwenpool on the swarms, maybe it hits once, maybe it hits twice, goes to 5, goes to 7. Victoria Hand can push that even further to 9. So yeah, potential opportunity for her there as well. So let's talk about how she actually works. So she only applies, or I should say the bonus only applies to cards created in your hand. So it doesn't work with other types of card generation like Arishem and Thanos, or drawing cards like Cable. She is the cheapest ongoing board-wide buffer in the game. That is absolutely awesome. Let's just compare her to the next cheapest board-wide buffer, Patriot. Patriot is a 3/1, so Patriot himself is a low-tempo play. Victoria Hand is not low-tempo. She's a 2/3, so she's got utterly acceptable power, and the amount of power that she puts out across the board, considering her cost, is just crazy. So pros, she has a very high potential value, sort of as we were just saying. If you play 3 cards generated in your hand, just a couple of arrows and one other card, she's 2/9. 2/9 in value. So truly guys, we are genuinely talking about potential Thena levels of numbers here in the right deck. She's a cheap ongoing card with fine base power, so she can be easily copied via effects like Mystique, Frigga or Moonstone. This will duplicate her power with a cheap effect. So it's important to think that, yes, of course, you can duplicate expensive cards like Devil Dinosaur. The duplicating Devil Dinosaur deck is awesome, really cool, especially good for people with a lower collection level, and one of the truly awesome early decks that you're able to make in this game. But it's expensive to pull off, and it's obvious what you're doing that one thing. Whereas if you're duplicating Victoria Hand, there's a very important factor that I want to point out here. I could be wrong on this, 100% I could be wrong, but if you create a copy of Victoria Hand, the copy should buff herself. She should be a 2/5 because she's an ongoing card, and she doesn't say that it doesn't say other cards generated in your hand. It just says cards generated in your hand. She was generated in your hand, so she should get that ongoing buff. That's absolutely insane. So this is Frigga's new best friend. It curves into Frigga. Absolutely crazy, guys. She can give a comparatively huge buff to cheap generated cards like arrows. If you think about the arrows, Think about a basic arrow, 1/1, gets power if you play the same place next turn. I mean, Victoria Hand is making it a 3 power, and then obviously you can trigger the on reveal on it. So yeah, she works particularly well with cheap generated cards. I think that's important to mention. And the ordering doesn't really matter. We've seen with a lot of cards recently, especially think about things like Rocket and Groot. The ordering is really important. Like you with Rocket and Groot, you sort of really do want priority in order to play it down. With Victoria Hand, doesn't matter. You play her early. Sure, yes, you do need to worry about potential counters to her if you do play her early, but you can then copy it if you can get it out early. Or you can play it late as a surprise card. And yeah, I think the potential for the surprise of playing her on the final turn is going to be madness. But there are a couple of cons with her. Not many though, to be honest. But if played early, she does give an indicator to your opponent of what to expect. She might have a slightly lower cube rate from that factor. You're not always going to be wanting to snap on turn 2 when you've got your Victoria Hand. And yeah, you don't know if they're going to counter it, blah, blah, blah. And speaking of counters, she's got a lot of them. She has got a lot of counters. Before we talk about the counters though, let's look at the locations that are good for Victoria Hand. I haven't listed all of them, by the way, guys. There is lots of locations that in one way or another add cards to your hand. So I've listed most of them, to be fair, but not all of them here. So just some highlights. Destroyed Mansion, adding a Vibranium to your hand. Straight away the Vibranium is a 1/6, so that's really good. Obviously your opponent's got a 1/4, so it's not truly at the same level of value. But you also sort of has more incentive to play it than your opponent as well, in a way. Cloning Vats is insane. Like I said, the copy of Victoria Hand should get the buff herself, so it should be a 2/5, but actually, if you just load up Cloning Vats with Victoria Hands, you're just going to go crazy. In a somewhat similar way, Bar Sinister. Victoria Hand on Bar Sinister, you probably don't want to play it early, so there's that, but Victoria Hand on Bar Sinister gives all your other generated cards +8. So if you just play a couple of arrows, even if you did this on the final turn, you still got 4 energy. Play a couple of arrows, they're like 10 plus power each, and then whatever else you've got. Unbelievable. Triscaling, obviously great, gives you a smorgasbord of plays to choose from. Taco Truck, very interesting. It's a 0/2, so actually, normally you would play it and it merges. You actually probably want to find an empty location, because then it comes down as a 0/4. Panopticon, I know how to pronounce it, wow. Panopticon, obviously awesome, just basically ties into your shield archetype that you'll primarily be playing Victoria Hand with. Orcus Forge, my god, you're actually going to want to play into Orcus Forge for once, because those Sentinels are 2/5s, repeatable 2/5s, so that's pretty cool. Onslaught Citadel, it makes Victoria Hand give +4 power. Absolutely, like consider Onslaught Citadel, Victoria Hand, Mystique, Moonstone, Onslaught. I can't even imagine the power output. Nor Dimension, really good, obviously creates 0, are they 0/1 power? Ferry, is it Dijins? I can't remember, but anyway, yeah, they not only give you energy, but give you extra power as well. Like the one downside of playing them is that they're really low tempo. Not the case with Victoria Hand, they turn into little power bombs. And Nowhere's going to be really good because, as we said, there's quite a lot of counters with Victoria Hand, so you want to protect her as best you can. There are some things you can do to protect against things like Red Guardian, which we'll talk about, but yes, Nowhere's going to feel good. Couple of bad locations though. Sandbar, obviously that basically probably just goes against your entire deck, and Isle of Silence, not good for Victoria Hand. Let's talk about the counters though. So Echo, first and foremost, yeah, she's completely invisible, so you will play into it, which is going to be a shame for you, but yeah, maybe she'll see a rise in popularity this week when Victoria Hand comes out. Rogue is going to be interesting. She's literally going to steal the power, which is going to feel awful. That being said, I mean, Victoria Hand is a 2-cost card. If they're using a low tempo 3-cost card to counter it, is it really that, is it really that bad for you? Red Guardian, that is probably slightly worse than Rogue because you lose the power and you lose the ability or effect, whatever. The thing I would say about sort of insurance against Red Guardian, there is natural turn 1 plays that you can play into Victoria Hand. So things like Snow Guard is going to feel nice. She's got lower power than Victoria Hand, so you can confidently play Victoria Hand into there and it won't get Red Guardian as easily. Or think about Spider Ham for the same reason. Enchantress is going to mess you up real bad. That's going to feel awful. And of course Lady Deathstrike, although by that point in the game, Lady Deathstrike You might have other stuff going on, so you might not care too much. But yeah. Anyway, synergies. Quinjet, obviously, you are creating cards, generating cards, and they're going to be cheaper via Quinjet, which is going to feel really nice. Maria Hill, obviously, generating cards herself, and also potential insurance against Red Guardian. Mirage is going to feel nice, and Hawkeye Kate Bishop. Hawkeye Kate Bishop are an absolutely huge winner, because the actual power output of those arrows is just crazy, like gangbusters. Like, Pim Arrow is already like a strong card, filling a location, giving it that extra 2 for just one cost is crazy. Frigga, I think Frigga is just the biggest winner here this week. Frigga and Victoria Hand are absolute best friends. If you didn't pick up Frigga before, yeah, I don't blame you. She hasn't been mind-blowing. I actually think she is surprisingly fun, but with Victoria Hand, I mean, that's just a joke. That's going to be so good. And then Moon Girl, of course. Moon Girl being able to duplicate the Victoria Hand. Again, as we said, I'm pretty sure the copy is going to be a 5 power card, like a 2/5. Although you'll also play... You'll actually have the original Victoria Hand as well. So actually your copied Victoria Hand won't be a 2/5. She'll be like a 2/7. This is just crazy. And Helicarrier. Creating all those copies of cards in your hand. Smorgasbord, like we said. Right, let's talk about the decks. First deck I've got here is Shield Flood. So we do consider this to be a premium plus deck. This has got a lot of Series 6 cards in. So it is one for the higher spenders or more collection complete players. But it is like a flashy shield deck. So we've got the new season pass card, Iron Patriot. We have got, I should say this is called Shield Flood because it focuses on cheaper generation. There's only one card in the deck which is actually above 3 cost, and that's Mockingbird. And we are also going to generate a card via Iron Patriot who will be a 4, 5 or 6. But because we haven't got many of these more expensive cards, we have got US Agent in here. We've got Mystique who can copy the US Agent, or she can copy the Victoria Hand. She can copy the Quinjet as well in some cases. But you've got lots of great targets here. I think this is going to feel like a very consistent, very cool deck. As I said, focuses on cheap generation and actually ample generation. So you've got Collector here too. Ways to push tempo, which you want for the Iron Patriot with Hydra Bob. Absolutely awesome. Love the look of this deck. I can't wait to try it. Probably what I'm going to be trying first. The next deck is the Miracle Dump. So this is the style of deck that we talked about where you're dumping your hand and you've got basically it's a Miracle Dump deck. So in your early turns, probably not going to want to be playing many or any cards. You might need to dump like a Wasp or a Yellow Jacket at some point just to make room in your hand. But turn 3, you probably want to do something. So turn 3, you might even do something like Yellow Jacket, Wasp, Hitmonkey, just to get like a big juicy Hitmonkey going. You could then Frigga the Hitmonkey if you wanted to. That is an option. Or you start playing out your cards like the Victoria Hand and then Frigga. Start considering your Frigga options at that point. Otherwise, on turn 4 or turn 5, you want to be Moon Girling to duplicate as many powerful cards as you can. Again, considering which cards, up until this point, which cards you want to dump, which cards you want to play out, and which cards you want to duplicate. You might want to duplicate the Bob, the Ant-Man, the Martyr especially. Martyr, the downside of Martyr is she'll try and lose you the game. She can't if she can't move anywhere, so you can fill locations. Anyway, if you manage to get a Frigga down on 2, let me start again. If you manage to get Victoria Hand down on 2, Frigga down on 3, you could play Victoria Hand on 4. You can then Moon Girl on 5, and this is when you go absolutely crazy because depending on the composition of your hand here, you could still have Yellow Jacket, Wasp, and Hitmonkey. I mean, on the final turn, you could do, if you've got enough room, Wasp, Yellow Jacket, Wasp, Yellow Jacket, Hitmonkey, Hitmonkey, and I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine what we're dealing with. And that is a modest deck, by the way. So there's only a couple of Series 6 in there. Or 3, actually. Anyway, the final deck I have for you is a budget deck. So this is pre-hand Historic. This is a Devil Dinosaur and Shield deck. And it is a budget one. If you were wanting to upgrade this deck, you could certainly do something like Mirage swapping out for Kate Bishop. That sort of thing would be very good. Also, Bob would be fine in this deck as well. You have got Moon Girl, so you'd be happy to duplicate Bob. Otherwise, we've just got Spider Ham as a bit of insurance for Victoria Hand. We've also got our cheap generators like Snowguard and Maria Hill. Snowguard particularly good for buffing up the Collector that you've got in this deck. And again, we do see Mystique in here because we have got a couple of effects that we'd want to copy. Either Victoria Hand or Quinjet or Devil Dinosaur. But ultimately, this is a Devil Dinosaur deck, so the end game goal is Moon Girl, Devil Dinosaur. So, this is a reminder to like the video. If you're new, please subscribe. It would really help me out. There's still lots of you who are not subscribed to the channel. That is very sad. Why would you do it? Well, you're stealing from, really? You're stealing from me. Nah. Subscribe if you want to, but you certainly bloody should. Anyway, let's move on to star ratings. I think she's crazy, to be honest. Like I could have gone higher with this score. I've given her 4.5, but I mean, the more I think about it, I'm sort of talking myself into a 6-star rating here. Like, I've really only realised that the fact that the copy of her, I think, would be a 2.5, sort of just before I started filming this video, and I think that really does push her over the edge a bit. Like, that is crazy. Like, there's ways to copy her. Frigga, Legations, Moon Girl, you know, there's opportunities there. And so she's a 2.5 with her own buff, but then you've also got the original anyway. So she's a 2.7. She's a 2.7, right? But she's giving out the buff. Oh, it's just crazy. From a fun perspective, I think she herself will be like 3.5. I think she will be fun, but I think that it's the decks that you're playing her in which are actually going to be overall very fun. For the archetype, she is sort of the best shield card they've ever released outside of the beta. Like, really? So I've given her 6 stars for shield. And competitive, I think she'll be good. I've given her 4. Maybe she'll be better than that, to be honest, though. So ultimately, is she a snap or pass? You will not be surprised to hear she's a snap, guys. I think she's cracked. Like shield is basically my favourite archetype in the game. So is she like sort of my favourite card? By the way, haven't even mentioned, guys, I adore the character. Victoria Hand, absolutely loved her. She was in like Thunderbolts and stuff like that. She's basically like Norman Osborn's right-hand man when he was setting up Hammer and all that sort of stuff. She was like lurking in the shadows there and just being an absolute witchy minx. So yeah, love her. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you're new, please subscribe, like I said earlier, and I'll see you next time.